Thank you for coming to attend our October 7th City of Charleston Citizens Police Advisory Council meeting. I am now calling the meeting to order. I'm Twan Fielding, and we're so happy to have those of you who have connected by phone, as well as those of you who have come to attend the meeting tonight. We're fortunate to have Ms. Amber Johnson with us, who will present us some information on the Special Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Reconciliation. And we also have Mr. Steve Rumlin, who's going to present the First Amendment demonstration ordinance and an overview of the open carry statute. You'll also hear some additional updates from our subcommittees, communications, policies and procedures, and traffic stop, and then some updates from the police department in general from items that we have discussed during the last meeting in August, as well as any prior meetings to that time. I am saying all of this information because during this transitional period of support, city support, we were unable to have the actual information posted to the website in sufficient time for citizens to sign up to participate in tonight's meeting. If you have any concerns, community, that you would like to submit to the Citizens Police Advisory Council, please submit your concerns to CHSPOLICEADVISORY, which is the abbreviation for Charleston, then Police Advisory with no spaces at gmail.com. I know my Vice Chair, Paul Tamburino, will remind me to ensure that we provide that address again for you. This session is being recorded and will be posted at a later date for your watching. And again, if you should have any questions about the information shared here tonight, since you are unable to participate on live stream, please make sure you send an email to that email account. Again, that's the abbreviation for Charleston, which is CHS, spell out police, advisory at gmail.com. Now, with that said, and a welcome to all of you who have joined us here tonight. We've got numerous participants from the leadership at the Charleston Police Department, and we thank you for stepping in and attending tonight. I did talk with Chief Reynolds, and he is not able to join us tonight, but that does not mean anything regarding his commitment to this process and to the goals and ideals of the Citizens Police Advisory Council. Deputy Chief Walker and Captain McFadden, with others represented here tonight, Captain Bruder and others here present, will provide us the updates so that we can ensure that we're staying on track with the goals and ideals of the council. Two of our council members, as we proceed to roll call, and Andrea, I hope you have a listing. If not, I can do my best to give you some names, and so we would have it accurately recorded in the minutes. Emily Broom, Councilwoman Emily Broom, and Councilman Camden Shields are unable to attend tonight's meeting due to some last minute schedule conflicts that have arisen, but they are, Emily Broom represents City Councilman Seekins District, which is District 8, and Camden Shields represents City Councilman Griffin's district, which is District 10. Again, I'm Twan Fielding. I'm from District 3, City Councilman Jason Saccharin. Andrea, are you ready to call the roll for the others present?
Yes, ma'am. I have a list in front of me.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, first we have Frank Walsh, Ryan Davis, Paul Tamburino,
Present.
George Palmer, Kevin Smith, Melvin Hack Azell, Doris Grant, Becca White,
Present.
Moyu Yamaguchi, Jerome Harris,
Present.
Max Milliken, and Jack Handigan.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea,
Pardon
and
me,
thank
Frank-
you, Jack.
Frank Walsh, I forgot to say present.
I was about to say, Frank is here, and I didn't think Doris Grant, Councilwoman Doris Grant said present, but she's here.
Yes, I see her name on the list.
Okay, very good.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
That's
present.
okay.
I said present, I was on mute.
On
Sorry.
mute, yeah. No problem, no problem. Also, Andrea, and other council members, we want to say thank you to Jack Handigan for joining us tonight. Jack is in process of being confirmed, we certainly hope, by the city council. I did get a chance to talk with Chief Reynolds today and with Steve Rumelin. And on last evening, I got a chance to talk with Deputy Chief Walker. As you know, we have a number of positions that need to be filled. We have 4 actually that are vacant at this time. And we have our 2 high school student positions that are available. Hopefully during the next city council meeting, those positions will be confirmed. And so they will be able to start working with us. So Jack, thank you for joining us tonight and getting a chance to hear what you're going to eventually have an opportunity to share in widely. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
With that said, the citizens' participation period that's listed on the agenda, we're unable to participate with that line item. We ask that because of the advertisement for this meeting, inadvertently did not allow an opportunity, as we usually do, for citizens to sign up to speak to us. In the absence of that opportunity, we ask, please, citizens, any concerns or any compliments, any discussion or remarks you would like to share with the Citizens Police Advisory Council, please send an email with that information to Charleston, and that is CHS, not Charleston spelled out, but CHS POLICEADVISORY@gmail.com. And again, that's the abbreviation for Charleston. Then spell out the word police and spell out the word advisory with no spaces in between @gmail.com. And we will be certain to ensure that we get an address to your concerns or comments that you provide. And we will also review those during our December 2nd meeting. Thank you, Paul, for putting it on the screen. And so when those that look at it through Facebook or YouTube, they will get a chance to see that. Now we move to item number 5, Roman numeral 5, Special Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Reconciliation update. Ms. Amber Johnson was kind enough to come to us back, I think it was in June, and she offered to return to us once the recommendations, the report was actually delivered to City Council, with hopes that we would also have recommendations approved by City Council. I don't know if you got a chance to see the City Council meeting on August the 17th, but as a result, although those actions did not occur, Ms. Johnson is true to her word and is meeting her commitment to us. And we're so appreciative of you making time to join us tonight, Ms. Johnson. And please share with us any updates you're able to share with us so that we could see how we could work together to bring about the improvements for the city. Thank you again for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. In the chat, I placed a link to the report that was released. That way you can access all of the recommendations. The report looks large, but the meat of it is in the beginning of it. So I think it's the first 50 to 60 pages is where you'll find the information and the charts for the recommendations. The one specific to this committee can be found in the criminal justice section, and those recommendations are there. I believe it's the first set of recommendations, so you shouldn't have to go through a lot of them to find them. As you stated earlier, the council meeting didn't go as planned for us, but the mayor has accepted the report and has distributed the recommendations to all the standing committees of council. So we're planning to continue to move forward with these recommendations. We're continuing to talk to our community organizations and uplifting these recommendations to make sure that we have progress and we have support going forward. Our next steps are to continue to move forward with the recommendations, and then also to try to continue to work on the ordinance to create a permanent commission, because that ordinance was also failed at council. So we're doing work to try to revise the language in that to see if we can bring it back so that we can have a permanent commission working on these issues throughout the city. So when you take a look at the recommendations, one specifically for criminal justice, you'll see that they're broken down into long-term goals, objectives, and then strategies and actions. And then that way, that's how you can work through the recommendations. There's 3 long-term goals. I think the first one's reimagining police services. There's one about evaluating municipal ordinances. And the last one is about the municipal court, improvements to the courts. So I think all valuable recommendations, and our goal is just to continue to move forward. So we're asking people to continue to support and advocate on behalf of the commission, continuing to let council know that this work is needed, and there's community support behind it. I can answer any questions.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Johnson. Any questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
if
sir,
I could,
Councilman
as most of you know, I chaired wound up chairing, backed into chairing the subcommittee on criminal justice reform.
Appreciate you.
And I can report more broadly that all of the subcommittees in their recommendations included a recommendation for there to be a permanent commission to continue the work. And I would ask commissioners these commissioners on this council members to take a look at that report and urge their city council members to consider that. I can, the situation is that the ordinance passed on first reading, failed on second reading, and as a consequence has to be reintroduced by one of the council members who voted in opposition to moving it forward on second reading. So there's a little community education associated with that. And I would urge you to be aware of that and involved to support the concept of a permanent commission. And I'm saying that on behalf of my colleagues, the other 6 commission members, civilian commission members, not the city council people. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Harris. Was there any specific reason given for the failure of the ordinance on the second reading?
I think there was a lot of debate at council about 2 sections of the ordinance. Both of them specifically referred to the final report and advancing those recommendations from the final report.
That second reading was at the September meeting, Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Okay. So if you would like to visit the city council site to go back to see that meeting and exactly what happened, to help encourage your city councilman to vote in favor of this ordinance, please go on to YouTube and you can pull that city council meeting up. You can just search for Charleston City Council meeting. And do you remember that date? I know
September 14th.
September 14th, thank you. So
Mhm.
September 14th, I did do the August 17th meeting. So please take a look at that so that we could see what other things we can do to help to encourage the ordinance. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Johnson? Now, if you're on the call and you are able to unmute and you have a question, please feel free to do so. It's really wonderful that we were able to get Ms. Johnson back so quickly to talk with us after what she has experienced the August 17th and September 14th meetings of City Council. So please feel free to ask questions now at this time. Councilman Tamburino, was that your hand, right?
Yeah, I think I had the same question you did, but I want to follow up a little. So Ms. Johnson, okay, so there were 2 points on there that they didn't agree with, so they shot it down, obviously. So do you believe that well, I guess it's a two-part question. Number one, do you think that the arguments will overcome that objection? Or number two, is there an ability for your group to go back, modify the report, to remove those two that may be objectionable, to bring in, and once you remove those, that they would accept the rest of it? Is there any appetite for that?
Not to modify the report, but we have been working with council members to discuss ways to modify the language in the ordinance.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes, no worries. I just wanted to make that clarification because that was brought up.
And is the text of the ordinance in that document, the proposed ordinance?
No, not from the, no, that text is not there. It would be attached to the agenda items of those meetings.
Okay, thank you.
And Paul, that is available though. That is publicly accessible.
Mhm.
But the recommendations, I believe last time Councilman Harris, Jerry shared with us that the actual pages, and it really is, I think it's pages 18 through 22 of the total report that focuses on criminal justice reform, and pretty much aligned itself with actions that CPAC has been talking about and looking into.
Yeah, and I read those. I just hadn't seen the ordinance, so I'll go look that up because, we're obviously lobbying for an ordinance, not for a report.
Right. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Johnson? Okay. Thank you so much again, Amber, for joining us. Really appreciate it. And like we had talked before, we'll continue to keep the lines of communication open between us so that we could see how we could jointly continue to work for the improvements of conditions here in Charleston.
Absolutely.
You're welcome to stay on with us, ma'am, or if you need to bow off, we understand. But thank you again so much for taking the time to join us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Certainly. Okay, I think Steve Rumlin is on. You remember at the last meeting, you'll recall when you looked in the minutes, we talked about some different ordinances that were coming about. I think there were about 4 new ones, plus the open carry statute. And we wanted to have more information on those ordinances, especially the ones surrounding the demonstration and the concerns that many of us have received from constituents in various pockets of the city of Charleston regarding the apparent or perceived discriminatory practices when it comes to opportunities to demonstrate. So we asked Steve Rumlin if he would fill in for us and explain from his perspective as being one of the attorneys for the city, the First Amendment demonstration ordinance brief and the other ordinances as well, Steve. as well as giving us an overview of the open carry statute. So Steve, thanks again for preparing to share this information with us tonight.
Sure, and I'm trying to share my screen. Can you see it?
Oh,
yet?
you are, we can see it. Mhm.
Okay, so from beginning.
Right.
So what I have is, I presented maybe a week or two ago to members of the business community on the open carry. So I've taken that PowerPoint and I've kind of adapted it. And I know you want to get to the First Amendment. So there's about 30 slides here of both the open carry and the First Amendment. And I'll try to move fairly quickly through them. However, if you have a point that you want to ask a question on, please do, and we'll stop and discuss it at that time. So basically, the open carry with training, in simplistic terms, all it really did is take those that can carry a concealed weapon in a concealed manner and allow them to now carry it openly. So you can basically take your gun from inside your coat and wear it on your belt should you choose to do so, or if not, you can continue to carry it concealed. So the only thing that was changed in the basically in the main part of the concealed carry statute was they added the word openly to the concealed part of that. It went into effect on August 15th of 2021. I haven't seen a lot of people open carrying. We haven't had a lot of complaints at the police department, but you know all that could change at any time depending on the the climate of the city and the nation. So definitely we're keeping our eye out for that. And basically nearly all the same restrictions that apply when you were carrying concealed also apply to open carrying. So restrictions on who can carry a gun, where you can carry your gun, what the requirements are to get a permit are all basically the same. A concealable weapon is a firearm having a length of less than 12 inches. And again, it's something that can either be carried concealed on your person or openly should you choose to do so. You can find the Open Carry with Training Act, although it's not just one section of the state code, it's a number of different sections. The part of it that we're interested in is found in Title 23, Chapter 31, Article 4. And again, that's the concealed weapons permit statute. If you're familiar with that from either having a weapons permit or looking at it for any other reason before, you'll see only some minor changes there. In order to get a permit, you have to be a resident of South Carolina or own property in the state, be at least 21 years of age, not be prohibited by state or federal law from possessing a weapon, and you have to submit an application which includes your driver's license, proof of residence, a vision test, proof of training, and fingerprints. They took away the fee, basically, so you don't have to pay a fee anymore if you want to apply for a permit. The training, the stuff in white here is what is currently or was previously taught. What's in red is what's now added to that. So you have to learn about the statutory and case law relating to handguns and the use of force, basically self-defense laws, information on handgun use and safety, the storage of handguns, and especially storing the handgun so it doesn't get into the hands of a child. You have to fire your weapon. It used to be you'd fire 50 rounds. Now it's down to only 25. I think they justified that on the cost of ammunition these days. You have to learn how to properly secure your firearm, your holster, the cocked and locked carrying of a firearm, which is basically having a firearm that's ready to be fired except the safety's on. So how you remove that from the holster, remove the safety, and then fire the gun. How to respond to a person who attempts to take your firearm, and then finally de-escalation. If you get into an argument with someone, obviously the first thing it shouldn't be to go for your handgun. The places where you're prohibited from carrying a weapon, either concealed or openly, basically remain the same. You can't go into a law enforcement or correctional facility, courthouse or courtroom, polling place on election day, government office, schools, except you can be on school grounds if your firearm is secured in your vehicle. There's also a new exception that if there's a church service that's held at a school, some churches use schools on the weekends for church services. You can bring a gun onto the premises of a school for the church service, provided you have the permission of whoever's in charge, either the pastor or administrator of the church. Can't go to school or college athletic events with a firearm, daycare and preschool facilities, places where prohibited by federal law. You can't go to church with your firearm unless you have the permission of the pastor, reverend, whoever's in charge of the service. Can't go to hospitals or medical clinics with your gun unless you have the permission. And then for the businesses, there is a requirement that you place a sign up at your business if you don't want people carrying concealed or openly on the premises. And there's certain rules that apply for that. And certainly if anyone's interested in signage, we have a link on the city website that has a template for the sign and instructions of what you need to do to post that sign. So if anyone has any issue with that, they can go to that website, or they can call us and we'll help you out with that. Basically, a person who comes onto the premises in violation of the sign is trespassing and can be charged for trespassing. Also, employers can prevent their employees from coming onto the premises with firearms. And again, they can post a sign. A employee who comes on the premises with a firearm is to be charged with trespassing. People can't come to your residence with a firearm unless they have your express permission to do so. You can't go into a bar or a place that serves alcohol with your firearm unless you plan not to be consuming alcohol. Public transportation, you're not supposed to have any weapons on buses. And part of our new ordinance is that you can't openly carry a firearm at a permitted event, and that would include a demonstration, special event, or city-sponsored or permitted athletic event. Basically, the following people: judges, solicitors, workers' compensation commissioners, attorney generals, and assistant attorney generals can carry their guns anywhere. And it used to be that they had to be on duty when they were doing that, but they took away that requirement. So technically, a judge could carry their gun into a restaurant, even if the restaurant was posted no concealable weapons. I'm not going to go over the sign requirements, but again, they're available at these links. If anyone wants those links, I'd be glad to send them out to you as to how to post the signage. And then there's also some SLED guidance on the open carry. And then also, as it relates to the demonstrations, it's also illegal to point or present a firearm in South Carolina. So you may see someone with a firearm on their belt, but if they're walking around with it in their hand, waving it around, that's illegal. That's not open carrying. That's pointing or presenting of a firearm. So are there any questions about any of that? That's
Yes.
the open carry.
Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Yes, sir.
They carrying a weapon loaded, but with the safety on. With a revolver, there's no safety.
Right.
So that should be in
Yeah,
the law. It's indeterminate the way that
Yeah.
you've written it there.
Well, that's for the training. That's not part of the law. It doesn't say you have to walk around with your safety on your gun. It just says that the training that you receive in order to get your permit has to include that as part of the topics that are covered in that training.
So in the law, it doesn't say that you have to have a safety on if you have it doesn't say you have to have the safety on to carry.
That's correct. So you could carry a revolver or a semi-automatic pistol, either one.
And I only say that because if the law said the safety on, one police officer or one jurisdiction could say that you're illegal, another could say, yeah, that's legal. It's, it's indeterminate. It's left up to opinion.
Yeah, again, that's not a requirement, but it is something they teach, I believe, for safety purposes.
Okay. And I agree with it. I'm just.
Okay. Yeah, I do too. So are we ready to move on to First Amendment?
Steve,
Yeah.
before you move on, just to follow
Yeah.
up, you mentioned the presentation you did for the business community that was through Charleston Explorer. They sent us back the link and it had some extra spacing and stuff in there in the end and the beginning. So we're gonna get that edited and formatted down with our public information team and get that released in some fashion. I think it's gonna be a pretty large file, so probably on our website, but we are working on getting that done, but we want to make sure it looks like a nice.
Yeah, I mean, if you go on the city of Charleston's website, it's actually the Business and Neighborhood Services division of the government. That's where you have the signage stuff on there, and it's the link to the sled guidance. But again, if you don't want to go to the trouble of looking for that, just shoot one of us an email and we'll get it to you right away. Any other open carry stuff? All right, I'll move on to First Amendment demonstrations then. So back on July 29th of this year, the council passed the third reading of a First Amendment demonstrations ordinance, which is contained in Chapter 25, Article 3 of the City Code. And I'll just mention at the time that we came up with this new ordinance, we also amended our special events permit ordinance, our parks permit ordinance, and our weapons section of the code to basically, they interact with one another. And in order for them to make sense, we had to amend them. Our demonstrations were formerly covered under our parade ordinance. And what we found is that, I think that was passed in like the 70s. And what, people typically think of as a parade isn't necessarily what we think of as a demonstration. So we wanted to broaden the definition to include the demonstrations that we've been seeing over the past several years, and take the parades out when they're now special events. So when we were looking at this, we looked at the following reasons for doing this. First of all, with more First Amendment activity going on, we wanted to protect First Amendment rights for all citizens. So this isn't just a limitation on some of the things you can do in the city. It's actually a protection in order for you to engage in First Amendment activities without, in a safe manner and without being harassed in any way. It also is to provide clarity to the public regarding the permitting process. So if you take the time to read through this ordinance, you should be able to figure out exactly what you need to do to plan a demonstration. And also you may be dealing with, with the police department. We're always happy to help you work through that as well. We wanted to streamline the permitting process among the city departments. It used to be that people may not know exactly what kind of permit they needed, so they would contact one department and be, sent to another department. Now we're hoping we can get you in the right spot in the beginning and save you the hassle of having to look around for that. We want to maintain order, safety, and the use of enjoyment of public areas in the city. And we also wanted to address the change in the Open Carry with Training Act specific to demonstrations. So that's the reasons why we did all this. The law is that any demonstration, assembly, picketing, speech making, marching, etc., on any street, including the sidewalk area, a park, or a public place in the city that involves the communication or expression of views or grievances, and it's engaged in by one or more person and likely to draw a crowd of onlookers, is in fact a demonstration. So a demonstration can be as few as one person holding a sign or a flag. A demonstration can be 1,000 people marching through the street. So when is a permit required? It's only required if you plan to have 24 or more people as part of your demonstration. It is not required if you're less than that, and it does not apply to spontaneous gatherings which are First Amendment demonstration that is occasioned by breaking news or affairs coming into public knowledge less than 48 hours prior to the event and is conducted at a public forum. So if something happens today and you see it on the news and you feel you need to express your views or grievances, whatever it may be, by going to the police department or the courthouse or the solicitor's office or wherever, that is a spontaneous demonstration. However, if you plan it and you say, meet me down at the police station at 5 o'clock and we're going to have a rally, then I would argue that's not spontaneous and that would be subject to our permitting rules. Whenever you're going to have a gathering, whether it's a permitted event or a spontaneous event, you should try and get in touch with the police department and at least put us on notice so we can help you ensure that your event is a safe event. So there are limitations on First Amendment activity. And the First Amendment, although it limits the government's ability to regulate speech, it does not guarantee a right to express oneself at all times, places, or in any manner that may be desired. And this is what's called time, place, and manner restrictions. So we can't stop you from saying what you want to say, but we can put limitations on the time, place, and manner in which it's said, and that's in order to keep the peace in the city and ensure public safety. As long as we have that interest in mind, we're allowed to do that. So there are some limitations in our ordinance that we think are for the greater public good, while still allowing the demonstrations. The hours of demonstration are between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. We won't grant you a permit for times outside of those parameters. And demonstrations lasting more than 3 hours may require a special events permit. So, if you want to be on a certain street corner in a certain park or march, a certain place, you may be able to get a demonstration permit if it's 3 hours or less. But if you're going to be out there all day and it's going to require the police department to provide resources and other departments in the city to provide resources, you're likely going to have to get a special events permit. And that's going to, involve a little more planning and probably cost as well. In addition to demonstrations lasting more than 3 hours, special events may kick in when your request is made to reserve a particular public area for use. You want to take over an entire park or other public area. If you request for a particular area on a frequent or regular basis, although it's not a demonstration, the farmers market is an example of that. They deal with our special events people because they're in Marion Square on a weekly basis during the season. Demonstration will require the use of city resources, staffing, or departments besides the police department. If the fire department has to get out there, our sanitation people have to get out there. There has to be toilets set up, that sort of thing. That goes beyond just a demonstration to a special event. And finally, when it's in the best interest of public health, safety, and welfare, to plan that ahead of time. Weapons open carry is prohibited. However, this only applies to permitted events. So if you're a small group or a spontaneous demonstration, you technically would be able to open carry. I'd also point out that although you can't open carry at a permitted demonstration, you can still concealed carry at a permitted demonstration. So there still may be people with firearms at the demonstration, they just can't be carried openly. And of course, you can't point or present a firearm or brandish any other kind of weapon. And that applies to all First Amendment demonstrations, whether or not they're permitted. There's an application process. Basically, there's a form we provide you with that helps you to kind of outline what your plan is. We'll work with you on that. Or if you're not quite sure what type of plan you're looking for, we can help you with that as well. But you have to apply not less than 3 days nor more than 30 days before the date of your demonstration. Although the chief may approve a permit with less than 3 days notice for good cause shown, there's no fee required for that either. And then we have to respond to your request within 1 week of filing, or within 2 days if the application is filed 7 days, less than 7 days before the event. And the things that we consider in granting a permit or not granting a permit is, will there be a substantial interference with vehicular or pedestrian traffic, diversion of police resources, undue interference with fire and police protection, interference with movement of firefighting equipment, injury to persons or property, or provoking of disorderly conduct, expeditious movement from point of origin to point of termination. And if you plan on having a march, can you do it on the sidewalk in a single file line without basically impeding other people from getting where they're going? The chief has the authority to restrict demonstrations from certain areas if conditions present potential harm or threat to public safety, the free passage of vehicular or pedestrian traffic, or ingress and egress from buildings, elements, or structures. And as you know, the streets of Charleston are very narrow and at times crowded. And so that comes into play as to marches and demonstrations where, what are the big open areas where we can put a large group of people that's not going to basically stop the city from functioning or create situations where people are in close proximity and in conflict as well. The chief also has the authority to make reasonable adjustments to the date, time, frequency, duration, route, or location or manner of any demonstration in order to accommodate other events, the rights of property owners, the use of city streets, sidewalks, rights of ways, and parks, and the tranquility of surrounding neighborhoods and public health, safety, and welfare of the city. So permit may be approved with general conditions, which are usually just the regulations that we're going to talk about here in a second. Special conditions or alternate conditions. If we have a big event like the bridge run going on a weekend and you want to have a demonstration in Marion Square, obviously that's not going to work because we've already got a bunch of people there for another purpose. So we may say, you want the weekend before, you want the weekend after. Is there another location you can do this and try and work with you that way? And then again, there's time periods for whether or not a person's going to accept those alternative conditions. Counter protesters are subject to the same permitting requirements if over 25 people. So if you're going to have a counter protest to some other group that you know is going to be protesting on a weekend, you have to apply for that permit or potentially be in violation. You're subject to all the same laws and regulations, regardless of whether it's permitted or not, whether you're a protester or counter protester. Everyone has the same rules imposed on them. If more than one group wants to demonstrate at the same time and location as another, the chief has the authority to assign groups designated areas to preserve the peace. And priority of location will be given to the group that applied for the permit first. However, if there's a group that wants to apply frequently for the same location and there's another group that's also interested in that group, we at times will alternate between the groups as to who gets the priority of location. Those denied permits can appeal their determination to the Committee on Public Safety. You must file your appeal within 48 hours, and then it will be heard at the next Public Safety Committee meeting or 20 days, whichever is sooner. If you violate the rules or regulations, the chief can revoke your permit. Or if an event pops up in the city that would become a public safety issue, if you're planning on having a demonstration in an area and there's a fire or a hurricane or something like that, we may change your permit as a result of that. You're supposed to have your permit on you during the demonstration, and any violation of law, conditions of your permit, and or the regulations may also result in revocation of your permit in order to disperse your demonstration and or possibly a citation or arrest. And then these are the regulations that apply to all demonstrations, regardless of whether or not you have a permit. They're spelled out in Code Section 2552. The language is more fleshed out in the actual ordinance, but I've kind of summarized it a little bit here. You can't interfere with vehicular or pedestrian traffic. You can't have your demonstration within 15 feet of the outermost edge of a monument or memorial, and that includes placards and fountains and statues and that sort of thing. You cannot remain stationary or pass repeatedly in front of individuals' residence. You can't place structures or equipment on public property except as authorized by permit. That means you can't set up tables and tents and other things unless you plan for that with the permit. You obviously can't damage property. You can't hang or attach or place any flags, placards, or signs on public property. You can't enter federal, state, or county property without the permission of the owner or person in charge of that property. You can't harass or intimidate or interfere with others, whether that be counter protesters, bystanders, or non-participants. You have to comply with any signs posted in connection with an event. Example being under the state code, if an event is not to have open carry, there's supposed to be signs placed around the event notifying people of that. So you need to abide by that. You have to comply with federal, state, or local laws and regulations, our park rules, and lawful orders of law enforcement. And any violation is a misdemeanor that's triable in municipal court and punishable by up to 30 days in jail or a fine of up to $500. That's for violation of the permit ordinance and the rules and regulations. Of course, if you commit some other kind of criminal offense, an assault or an arson or something like that, that may be punishable under a felony level offense. And then I've got a couple resources here. One is a link to our website. I think Captain Bruder does a video there, and there's a link to our form and some other information regarding the permit process. And then the second one is an actual link to the application form. And that's all I have. Any questions?
One question that came up, thank you very much for presenting that detailed information. One question that did come up that we were chatting about was the availability of this presentation for the community at large. And Captain Bruder responded back in the chat. And I asked him if he would share his response at this time as well.
So I thought you were talking about just the open carry. That's the one we did for the public at the meeting before, and I interrupted in between his two presentations. So that's the one we have that we're working on with the PIT team. Were you talking about this presentation here?
Well, is this section the First Amendment? Right, is that available too? Would that be able to be available as well?
Yes,
Just
it
the open
is.
carry?
It can be available as a recording of this, or we can do a separate presentation.
Yeah, we can get this over to our media team as well to get that, canned down and
Okay,
to just that portion that people having to scroll through a bigger video and all that kind of stuff and have that available for us. So.
But yeah, we'd be happy to present to the community on any of this. So it certainly isn't a secret, and the more we get this information out, I think the better for everyone.
right, thank you. Councilwoman Grant, Doris Grant?
I don't have a question, thank you.
Oh, okay, your hand was up. Okay, I'm sorry. Councilman Harris, Jerry?
Yeah, I asked in the chat, I asked Captain Bruder whether or not any of the policies or ordinances or directives of the department have been changed or in the process of being changed as a result of the adoption of this ordinance. And the second question is whether or not there have been any violations or complaints that have been filed since the ordinances have been created, or things going well.
I'll tackle both of those. The first one is, yes, this is going to affect General Order 54, which is special operations, permits, and events. That policy is already undergoing a pretty significant overhaul with some organizational changes and this stuff going on. So it's one of the many, for those of you that were on the traffic stop subcommittee, all the special operations is kind of getting a close look at all their policies and kind of streamline it and get those up to date as soon as possible. One other thing, when this ordinance came into effect, because it was more or less approved and immediately went into effect, there wasn't any waiting period or warning stage of this ordinance. So I did that rather quick video that Steve referred to, and we also, anybody that had ever submitted or requested a permit through us before, they used to be called parade permits. We emailed them all the links, the new application, an explanation, and everybody pretty much that's ever gotten one of these has my cell phone number and offered to answer any questions. So there's been some feedback we've received from some groups about some of the language and those types of things that we're working through and looking to see if there's some improvement there. But overall, we haven't heard too many complaints regarding the process itself of obtaining a permit for a First Amendment demonstration.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, I was muted. Thank you. Any other questions for Captain Bruder or for Mr. Roman, Steve? I'm looking real quick to see if I see any hands raised. Okay. Andrea, I hope you see where George Palmer, Councilman Palmer has joined us. He joined early. I just didn't get to say
Yes,
anything
ma'am.
to you. Great, thank you. Thanks again, Steve, for presenting the information to us. We'll move on now to the subcommittee reports. Communications, our subcommittee chairman is Councilman Tamburino. Policies and procedures, our subcommittee chairman is Councilman Harris. And traffic stop, Councilman Shields is not able to be on with us tonight. And Ryan, his intention was to have Councilman Ryan Davis present. I don't see Ryan on. So what we will do is we will make certain to, Andrew, we can make certain that we have him share the report at the December meeting. And I'm sure he'll probably be combining the information that he was going to share tonight. But he did have a report from Traffic Stop. I do know that Captain Bruder has a presentation that he shared with the Traffic Stop Subcommittee during their last meeting. So Captain Bruder, that would, instead of waiting until the update section, you can certainly present it at that time as a part of the subcommittee section for Traffic Stop. Councilman Tamburino, Communications.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. We've submitted our report in writing by way of our minutes, so I think most of the information that we have is contained in there. The highlights are obviously the two discussions we just had are good segues into the highlights of what the communication subcommittee wants to do. So for everybody's benefit, we were originally, I believe, chartered to look at the audit for the suggestions on ways to improve communications. And I think, over the past year, we've made recommendations, we've made motions to the CPAC. And basically what we proposed are strategies and things that we recommended to CPAC. And I think for the most part, we've reached our value in that. So as a CPAC, as a subcommittee, we really looked at what's our purpose moving forward now that we've really, come up with good strategies. And we've actually come up with an idea, and we'd like to make a motion, Madam Chair, if you don't mind. This is coming out of our subcommittee. The communications I'm making a motion from the CPAC that the communications subcommittee be repurposed to execute on actions approved by CPAC related to communications, education, and community outreach efforts.
Thank you, Councilman Tamburino. You've heard the motion, council members. It comes from committee. It needs no second. As a point of order, before we proceed, Steve Rumlin, do we have sufficient number for a quorum to be able to take a vote tonight?
You do have a quorum, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, members, you've heard the motion, repurposing of the subcommittee, communication subcommittee for establishing information sessions. All those in favor?
Aye.
You know what, can we drop the shared screen a minute, please? So I could see everyone on the screen at once. Thank you so very much. Okay, good. Thank you. Now I'm better. All right. All those in favor of the motion, please thumbs up or say aye. Okay, that, Andrea, you see?
Aye.
2. Okay. All opposed? Please state so by saying opposed. Wonderful. The ayes have it. And so ordered. Thank you very much, Councilman Tamburino. And thank you, CPAC members, for your expeditious efforts. Any additional information, Councilman Tamburino?
No, ma'am, what we're going to do is we're going to go back and put together a recommended agenda of items. So basically, fellow CPAC council members, what we're looking to do is we've already had approved that we create, that the CPAC should conduct, we would say almost monthly educational sessions for the public on a variety of different topics. Now we want to take that under our umbrella and actually execute on those. So we'll develop a calendar of topics. We'll work with the resources of the police department for content as well as for scheduling and the logistics of it, and so that we can get an audience of the entire city rather than specific districts. And we wanted to, I will say, as a matter of information, we do like the topic of one of our monthly topics being First Amendment demonstrations. One of the topics being the new open carry. And I think the recommendation for our first session would be to have a review of the police department's mid-year report on the implementation of the racial bias audit recommendations, so that we start getting that community involvement in something that's really kind of was our focus on why we were created in the first place, is to help bridge that communication gap. So that's our goal moving forward. And thank you, everybody, for your support.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Grant, your hand is raised. Did you have a question? Oh, it looks like she pulled it down. I think so. Yes, okay. Policies and procedures, Councilman Harris.
Certainly. We met on September 8th. The department updated us on activities associated with particularly making enhancements to the information that can be gotten to the public regarding the complaint process. That's reflected in the minutes. In addition, there was language, you recall from our last meeting, 2 meetings ago, we recommended that the department insert into written directive 5 language concerning CPAC's participation. At the subcommittee meeting, there was language presented. And Christy, can you put that up? The screen that shows the PowerPoint that Captain Cretella provided.
Captain Cretella's PowerPoint?
Yeah. Written directive.
Okay.
And there, really quickly, it reads as follows: the CPAC shall provide comments, suggestions, and recommendations to the Chief of Police on department policies, procedures, and programs related to community policing and services, and suggest changes to CPD policy and procedures, practices, and training aimed at improving relations with the community. During our discussion, we recommended that the phrase to community policing be removed, and that it be programs related to policing and services suggested changes. In that discussion, we recommended that back. It's my understanding that command staff has had that discussion and will accept that proposed amendment. And with that being the case, emerging from our discussion, we would like to have the full council accept or act to accept the language. As you see on the screen, what would happen is in the 1, 2, 3, 4th line, where it says related to community policing, we would take community out and just put to policing services and suggested changes to CPD. Captain McFadden or Captain Bruder, because I don't see Captain Cortella on, they accurately reflect.
Don,
Captain Cortella's on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
The motion comes from the Policy Procedure Subcommittee, so it needs no second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Andrea, I am visually impaired a bit with having to scroll down. Please leave your hand up a minute so that we can scroll to check. Okay, thank you. One more screen. All right. All those opposed, please use the same sign of raising your hand since we are sharing screen right now. I don't see any opposition, any abstentions, which I did not call for before, and I did not see any. Thank you very much. The motion passes.
And finally, Madam Chair, the included in that PowerPoint, and Captain McFadden, if you could go to the policy review slide real quick. Slide 2, I guess, yeah, that one. The previously reported that the department was undertaking review of 55 policies during 2021. This graph shows that 6 have been completed, 36 are in progress, and 11 not assigned. And Captain Cortella, you left off the one that you guys deleted, and one policy has been deleted altogether. Attached to our minutes is the actual grid of those policies, who's responsible for it, the deadline, and the current status. I just urge the other members of the, particularly the traffic stop committee, because from reading your minutes, Captain Bruder presented and described the fact that they're making a number of changes. You may want to continue to monitor that. And Madam Chair, I believe that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Would Andrea, just for purposes of these minutes, would you also include the grid that the Policy and Procedure Committee submitted
I
as
can
a
do that.
part of their report, so that we make sure that when everyone is reviewing the minutes at a later date, from this meeting, they will have that to be able to reflect on.
Sure.
Thank you so very much.
Madam Chair, one other observation in our discussion, and I think Captain Bruder has made this observation both at the traffic stop committee and earlier in this discussion. There are a broad range of changes and policies being made by the department, and the policy committee will make an effort to pay attention to that. Captain Cortella mentioned, I think in particular in our last discussion, is it the General Order 1 that has to do with mission and objectives. Is that currently under major review?
Yes, sir. In terms of just our language, we want to add to it and take away some language as well.
Okay. I would just suggest, as soon as you have that available, if you would mind sharing that with us so that we can make that a priority in terms of our subcommittee's review.
Absolutely.
Now that completes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the Policy and Procedure Subcommittee? Okay, thank you very much, Councilman Harris. With the traffic stop, as you heard, I did ask Captain Bruder if he would share the very informative presentation or excerpt from that presentation that he shared with the Traffic Stop Committee. I think you will find the information very informative, and you'll see that he's really on a great track to being able to get information that is quantifiable and able to be shared with us in the community for understanding the demographics and all of the traffic stops. Captain Bruder, thank you so much for agreeing to present at this time as well.
All right, you're very welcome. So what I've presented to the Traffic Stop Subcommittee is some things that are going on in the traffic unit and the traffic team. The traffic team is composed of not just the traffic unit, but also harbor patrol and transport and some extra duties there. But we're looking at the traffic unit there, and that was kind of some key pieces in the audit there. Recommendations or findings 1, 2, and 3 were specific to the traffic unit and their traffic enforcement strategies and those types of things. So earlier this year, the traffic team was moved under special operations, so it's now under my command, and we're looking at a whole lot of different things. But one of those things is the overall strategy, which is to reduce collisions, especially dangerous collisions in the city. So we have that specific focus for them. It's in our strategic plan, and that really completes recommendation 2.1. We are reviewing and kind of overhauling their policies specific to them. But the essence of what the audit was talking about in recommendation 1.1 is having a specific general order is already there. We're just refining and making all that kind of work together in more of a collaborative and comprehensive way. So, we can see some big strides, and we're starting to do a lot of things with our data, and I'm gonna throw some numbers stuff up here in just a second. The first one is a graph of just traffic citations. It's about a 5-year review of traffic citations broken down by quarter. It does have, when I say traffic citations, we can write citations for any number of things and not just traffic stops. That includes criminal arrests for simple possession of marijuana or shoplifting, your typical speeding or DUI or non-moving violations. So the graph really can show, and I'm going to put the graph up there and just let everybody take a look at it for a second. And you may ask yourself, as you look at this, the blue is the non-moving violations, and the golden color, the yellowish color there is moving. And so likely all those came from traffic stops or traffic collisions. And where this is important for the traffic unit is the traffic unit typically writes most of the traffic citations for the department. They write a good predominance of it, so they kind of lead the way, and where they go is where the patrol officers tend to follow. And this only captures the citations being issued. It doesn't capture warnings and all that other stuff. But if you look back to 2016, which that number is almost 6,000 total tickets in that first column here in the far left, you can see that almost 60% of our tickets that were issued during that quarter were for non-moving violations. And that relatively continues until 2019. And you may wonder what happened in 2019. Well, we were a good couple months into our audit, and we found out that some traffic officers were issuing in abundance non-moving violations. So there was a definite culture that perceived traffic enforcement as it writing a lot of tickets, leading to a lot of encounters with the public. And that's why in the audit, having a strategic plan for the traffic unit is so important. what should they be doing? Why are we doing stops? Do we need to be stopping people for the reasons we are? And you see that kind of big shift in the blue line where it's almost cut in half and then down to a third from where it was. And the total number of stops went down. This last column, quarter two here, not the second from the right here, is less than 2,000 tickets. So a third of the tickets, but now almost 55% of the tickets, almost 60% of the tickets are for moving violations. Those things which impact collisions, those things which have the potential to save a life. So, you can see the cultural shift there. You can see how using data can help reinforce whether or not our policies and our expectations are being met. More than just counting a number of, okay, how many tickets did we write? 6,000, 8,000, 9,000 in one of these years or quarters in 2017. A couple of them were 9,000. Well, if those are all for things that aren't going to help us achieve our objective of reducing collisions, then they're really just the possibility of a negative encounter that we're having with the public. So this is one of the first ways we're starting to use data and see these things. This is just, again, citation data over the years. And the data that this was obtained from is on our public dashboard. Any citizen could download it and see these data and do these points and measures here. So to me, this shows not only we can say that we've changed our policy, that we have a strategic plan for the traffic, but this kind of gives the data to the proof in the pudding there. You can see that shift that happened between the first or second quarter of 2019 into the third quarter of 2019. And then as that progressed and stayed in that manner. So the other thing that y'all have heard a lot from is we're working on systems to talk to each other. Our traffic stops are called into CAD. That doesn't talk to where the tickets and the warnings go because that's a state-run system. So I think I came on before and talked about how we're going to do an FCC for every proactive stop, a field contact. And that's going to allow us to capture data in a way that can be used to determine if our objectives are being met. Why are we doing stops? Where is the breakdown? Where should we be doing education for us, for the community, for leaders out there? Where are our gaps and where can we start improving? And it's going to give us the opportunity to monitor what I call some unintended outcomes or side effects. If we deploy an operation in an area or we have this objective and it's creating some disparate numbers as far as demographic goes, we may need to adjust that. We may need to see what's causing that. Why is this instruction causing this outcome? And then adjust from there. So the next screen I'm going to show you here is a sample. It's just a screenshot. It doesn't work. It's just a picture, but it is what we're working toward. We have some sample data in there. It wasn't with the live thing. That's why the date range is from July. But this is taken from our field contact. Now, this specifically is only from proactive traffic stops. And you can see that we are able to track the things such as race. We can see it visually. We can see what percentage it breaks down. The lower left hand gives us who was searched, how many people weren't searched. And so we're continuing to work with our data analysis people to be able to answer the questions that we're wanting. It's going to be a kind of a evolving process here. But having this data available is huge for us at CPD. We've asked these questions, we've had these questions, but it's never been readily accessible, nor has it been in a way that we can look live time and narrow down. You see a whole bunch of filters over here. And so this next screen is just, all I did was add a filter for just the traffic unit. And that's what we're looking at here. So in July, when traffic has a very clear mission of reducing collisions, doing enforcement in areas for moving violations, here's who they stopped. Here's what the breakdown was. You see, they didn't search anybody unless they were taking them to jail. There was no probable cause searches or anything like that. They're very focused on, reducing collisions. You look at the racial makeup of these stops. 72% white drivers, 25% black drivers. Well, we've done some studies throughout the city and know that generally speaking, 30% of our driving population is black. So that's our benchmark. And being able to see this data, see, okay, traffic went out and did this. We couldn't able, when we get the final version, narrow it down to, okay, I want to see what they did in West Ashley. What were the patrol on just these 3 days? They were out there targeting this issue. Who were they stopping? How is it being affected? And eventually we hope to be able to tie in other things so we can see that moving and non-moving component to it as well. Are we out there doing the things that are meeting our objectives? And then how is that affecting our objective? Are we actually reducing collisions? Is going to be the next step to all this, just from the trafficking standpoint of this. So this is where we're kind of seeing all this stuff come into play. We've got a few months of data here collecting that stuff in the FCCs. Now it's going to be understanding it and being able to interpret it as to what we do. I know the patrol side of this is working on recommendation 5.1, which is, having that strategic idea or that strategic plan for using traffic stops in a bigger picture, not just for traffic enforcement and reducing collisions, but how are traffic stops used across the board? Well, then you can see even more how this tool is more beneficial and can help us monitor what's going on out there and keep an eye on objectives being met and those quote side effects that might be happening. So that's what I have. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer it there. So.
Thank you, Captain Bruder. There is one question. Would you give an example of a common non-moving citation?
So non-moving citations would be any of your vehicle equipment violations. So cracked windshield, window tints too dark, registration, your sticker on the back of the car if it's outdated or your tags are expired. Any of those like vehicle registration or vehicle equipment violations are the non-moving violations.
And let's see, thank you. Any other questions at this time from anyone?
Yes. Bruder?
Mhm.
I know it's going to sound like a broken record, but how are we doing on making trucks stay to the right on 526?
We are steadily out there. I know that's one of Lieutenant Wojo. He has them out there monitoring collisions. Collisions are up significantly in Daniel Island area. So they're out there doing a lot of traffic enforcement. Our traffic officers go out there on a regular basis to kind of monitor that. There's a lot of frustration with traffic, and I share that. I've spent over an hour coming to work down in I-26 every day this week, hour and a half this morning. So it's just one of those things we're having to continuously monitor and keep an eye on. But we haven't forgot about that issue over there, and we're in communication with.
One last thing on that. Since 526 moved through North Charleston and Mount Pleasant, have you managed to talk to those departments to cooperate with you?
Well, I think the part you're talking about is actually going up and down the bridges, right? Like that's where it's happening, which I think most of those are in ours. But I'll double check with Lieutenant Krasowski. I'm sure he has conversations with Mount Pleasant and North Charleston traffic on a regular basis. But I'll make sure that he's touched base with them on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Captain Bruder. Now we're moving into the updates of actions from the August 5th CPAC meeting. As I went through as we were presenting tonight, we have covered most of the actions. I just need to verify that you did receive by email the 2020 Office of Internal Affairs report. It was a 41-page document that Captain Quintella shared with me to share with everyone, and I did email that out, but I forgot to ask for confirmation of receipt of that. So if you would please check, someone will check to make sure that came through. If not, I can certainly resend. And with the motion accepted from Vice Chairman Tamburino regarding, excuse me, the repurposing of the Communications Subcommittee, that covers that action item that we had listed. And the remaining action item I found was one regarding Councilman Harris and Mr. Rumelin. If you were able to assess actions that would be required to assist with the business community for skilled facilitators. Not certain you did any further work on that, but that was one action item listed.
I noticed that in the minutes myself, Madam Chair, and no, we have not.
Okay, when you get a chance, if you could email me, and then we can see if we need to put that on the agenda for December 2nd.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. Now that takes us to did I miss anything?
Madam Chair, yeah, I think we've got listed the mid-year report.
Oh, no. Actually, if you look, that is actually on the
Oh, I'm
agenda.
sorry.
That's the
I'm
next
sorry.
agenda item.
I'm
No
sorry.
problem. That's the next agenda item. What I did was I lifted that actually from the minutes for the agenda because we mentioned that at the last meeting that we wanted to have that. Thank you, though, Councilman Harris. Any other items that anyone noticed I may have missed in going through the minutes?
Madam Chair, from the previous meeting, the discussion about the your review of the reports from the May 30th, 31st activities in 2020. That bit, I don't recall us having discussed what your findings were on that yet.
Correct. That's the OIA report I just asked about, the 2020 officers internal affairs report
Yes.
that was shared. Did you receive that, Councilman?
Yeah, but specifically the request was, I believe a couple of meetings ago, for you to review the specific complaints that were summarized in the report, and then make a report back to us or assess whether or not there was anything worthwhile for us to take a look at, that we might be able to make recommendations to the department around the processing of complaints.
Okay, now based on my review of the document, that's why I released it to everyone so that everyone could get a chance to see it. So we would have full disclosure and transparency. Captain Quintella and Deputy Chief Walker were very kind to share that voluminous document. It's 41 pages. So if everyone, we could certainly put that on the next agenda. Please, council members, review that internal affairs report. It is very informative because it not only talks about that event, there's a table of contents at the very front of it. I will, so that it will come to the front of your email boxes, I'll resend that to you. And Captain McFadden, I'll copy you on it because I don't think you were on it at that time. I think we had Wendy Stiver copied on it at that time. So I will resend that to everyone. Thank you. Any other items? And then Captain Quintella, if you or Deputy Chief Walker at the December meeting would prepare to do any discussions with us regarding it, I think that would be in order.
Absolutely, ma'am. We could put something together and make a robust presentation for CPAC.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now the audit mid-year report. Captain Quintella, I believe you're going to give us an update. Actually, when Chief Reynolds and I talked prior to the start of the meeting, as he was sharing with me his apologies for not being able to join us tonight, we did a word change. It's an audit mid-year update. And if you could share with us the dates, your time frame, the time schedule that you have for the update, and any salient information that you could share.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate the time on this topic. As you know, it's very important, and we are working hand in hand with CAJM on the audit as well. And they requested a mid-year audit report probably around April or May of 2021. And we are working on it as a department. During this shift and change with the procedural justice coordinator, as you know, I've been tasked with spearheading the audit now. And I was going through the report, and I just don't feel it is the best way to disseminate what the audit truly represents. So I met with the deputy chiefs and the chief. I presented to them my proposal on not releasing that report. And instead, what we are going to do is have a dashboard, as like Captain Bruder showed you, and also the IA dashboard that we completed, and put our updates in the dashboard. There are a few positives with doing that. As you can see visually, what we've accomplished and what's in progress. There'll be 3 different titles within the dashboard itself. It'll say full compliance, meaning that the audit recommendation has been complied with in full terms. Full compliance annual review, same concept. It's been complied with fully. However, we'll have to review that annually, and that will come in there with more notably our policies and our training issues. Because once again, even though we have these certain policies that get updated on a regular basis, some of them have to be reviewed every year, such as our body worn camera policy, our use of force policy, special units policy, that'll be reflected there, and also what's in progress. So the good news is that Ms. Stiver worked diligently on the dashboard. It is functional, it is up and running. The only changes that I want to make to it are some of the aesthetics of it to make it more presentable, if you will. And we are hoping to get that out around the 31st of October, or the absolute last would be the end of the first week in November. Like I said, the dashboard is up. It was made through our city GIS's department, and we just have to input the information through an Excel, a database essentially. And then at the end of the year, we will have an end of the year audit report, and we will meet with you to discuss what we are asking for CPAC to do and help us complete that report with your feedback as a whole. And we are eager to get that process started and really make this relationship, having CPAC be more involved in what we do. In addition to that, I took down Mr. Harris's, how the vote was in reference to General Order 5.5. We will make that change early next week. And once we get it published, we will send you a copy of it so you can see that CPAC is actually in there. And will also be on the website in the power facing documents that it does show that has been updated, also with CPAC's name in there as well. Does anybody have any questions in reference to the mid-year audit report, the annual report, or getting General Order 5.5 published? Ms. Grant, I see you have your hand up.
Yes. Can you go over those categories for response to the audit again?
Sure, we're gonna have 3 categories. The first one will be full compliance. And all that means is that what the audit recommendation is, we've achieved that and it's fully complied. The second one will be full compliance annual review. And that will be, it's fully complied with, but we will need an annual review. Some of that might be our use of force policy, some training initiatives they asked for in there, and some other initiatives within our Blue Team software system that as we develop and our compliance office does checks, we find from time to time that we need to make more updates to it. And one of the updates was that we learned mid-year this year, as shown in the OIA annual report, is the deployment of SWAT as a use of force. So we had to categorize that and we had to change that. So that would be one that would be under the annual review. And the last one would be in progress. And that is for the audit updates that are actually in progress. And the unique thing about this dashboard is that it's set up in a pie chart and they're categorized into different sections. And if you would click on the internal affairs section, it'll show you all of the audit recommendations that are under our umbrella, the status of them, and the next steps, and it actually lays them out. The problem with the annual or the mid-year audit report that was created is it was very technical in terms. And if you're not familiar with police jargon or police literature, it would be hard to read and digest. And I even found it somewhat complicated to understand. And we are trying to make this as user-friendly as we can and also more applicable as well.
So those ones identified as completed, how will that be documented that it's completed?
So in the pie chart, if you would click on, just say internal affairs, and you would click on one of the audit recommendations, such as Blue Team updates regarding using quote, other, end quote, as a type of force resistance. We completed that. We got rid of that other category that CNA found that we were using often, and we are getting that one. Another one is that in an internal affairs investigation, if numerous people miss court, we were lumping that together under one investigation. Now it's different investigations for that. So instead of using one number, it'd be multiple numbers. So that one wouldn't be on an annual basis because we completed that and we are no longer doing that practice anymore.
I'm just trying to figure out how, how would it be explained how it was completed?
So that's also
And directly responding to what was on the audit report.
so when you see this, and it's extremely hard to visualize, but within the pie chart, and you click on the internal affairs site, and then when you click on IA, it goes to all the audit recommendations. You would then see the ones that are color coded, such as full compliance annual review, and partially completed. If you went to the ones on full compliance, whatever color that's going to be, and you click on that, it'll actually list the ones within our specific umbrella that we've complied with fully, what we've done to actually take the proper steps to ensure that it has been completed. And once again, just because we say it's been completed, if you would go through it and you would say, hey, I don't understand what this means, or can you give me more clarification? We'll be happy to do that at any point in time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. This is, like I said, it's not just a presentation, it's a conversation for us to have. Just because we're talking about the audit, we're still trying to evolve, and we want to have these relationships in this communication piece, which is extremely important.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
I think Tony it's a real good question. But I think Tony just covered the reason why we decided not to have a so convoluted document published. Because even just trying to explain the dashboard, the document that was produced would have really blew your mind just as far as understanding and comprehension of some of the areas that were covered. So I just wanted to at least throw that out there.
Any other questions?
Jerry, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do.
That's what I saw. Oh, okay. Thank you.
So Captain Cortella, the conversation, the data that will be reported will be that data is generated by the department in terms of activities that have been taken and your assessment. The discussion about a quote unquote third party independent assessment of where we are in implementing the racial bias recommendations. Where are we with that?
So we're still in discussions with the chief on that and the deputy chiefs, and seeing what is the best way to achieve that. Our first step is going to be is once we are completed with our annual report for the audit, is actually pushing that out to you, CPAC, to actually look at it as an independent board and let us know your feedback on the thoughts of what we're saying that we're doing, and at least start that conversation. We haven't really dived in too much deep into another third party looking at it, but this is a first step that we feel that's actually tangible and we could accomplish something that we have a relationship with. And as you know, we have a good relationship. You go give us suggestions. We will either agree or disagree and have that healthy debate, if you will. And as you know, we are willing to work such as, the different policies so far. So that's our response initially, is using CPAC to help us out with the annual audit report, or the end of the year audit report for 2021.
Any further questions? And Captain Patella, Deputy Chief Walker, I just noticed what I did forward to the CPAC members was the 2020 Office of Internal Affairs report, and the actual presentation that you had on the May 30th, 31 incident. I saw on that email that I had forwarded that you sent, you were going to be sending that. So please resend the May 30th, 31 incident report that we briefly discussed so that I can include that in the email that I'm sending to CPAC again with the Internal Affairs report from 2020. Could you send that to me tonight and I can add it?
I just resent it to you right now, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Okay. And with that, I guess, Deputy Chief Walker, we did a policy committee recommendation at the last CPAC meeting. And we had some questions on the response that the police department provided us. And so I know, Deputy Chief Walker, you were going to work on giving us an update, or Captain Cotella was, regarding that policy committee, subcommittee's recommendation that the CPAC actually voted on.
Yes, ma'am. We are still working on that. As Mr. Harris stated, we are in a bunch of policy revisions right now. We had to take some of our policies and move them front ahead of this one, just because of the time that we haven't reviewed the other policies, but we are still working on this policy update, and hopefully we'll get all these updates completed by our deadline, which is before the end of the year. Giving specific questions in reference to this policy that I can help you out with right now?
No, I think the minutes from the previous meeting discussed it fully, and then the policy subcommittee presented the recommendation regarding the information you were going to update. So if you have questions regarding that information before the policy subcommittee's next meeting, please make sure to send those to Councilman Harris and copy Councilman Tamburino and myself. And then we can make certain that it gets covered in time to be ready to present at the December 2nd CPAC meeting.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Community engagement, Captain McFadden.
Yes, ma'am. Just a few updates since the last August meeting. We did some department-wide training. My community outreach sergeants led master training with our officers for our problem-oriented policing module, which is housed in our records management system. The reason we created this module, talked about it in the past, is to capture all of our community engagement, not only outreach unit is doing, but also patrol. So all of our officers in engagement, and these engagements could be whether it's an actual response to crime plan, it could be documenting traffic hazards, events, community events, problems that someone might raise to an officer. And the purpose is to document not only the problem, but the potential solution, and then clear it out with the solution. I mean, it could be as easy as, you know, this community member needed something in their home, such as food, and I was able to provide it. And so that way we'll be able to actually see these problems and pull them by team, and be able to see the community engagement that all officers are doing in all of our communities. So we also document our community meetings in there, and then the problems that are raised in some of our community meetings. And we attended a number of community meetings since August: the East Side, Ashleyville, Maryville, Island Estates, Ardmore, Ferguson Village. We can document those meetings, any problems, anything raised in there, and then reach out to the appropriate team or unit. Let's say it's a traffic issue that's ongoing. We would reach out to Paul and his team, and then we could document that as well. So we're actually being really successful. I frequently look through those in different teams and what the officers are putting in, and it's nice to see all of the community engagement that our officers are encountering on a day-to-day basis. So we had a number of events in outreach in our communities, which were advertised by the media. Also, local news stations interviewed a lot of our officers on scene of our events. We did a food packing and distribution event in Hazelwood and Bridgeview communities. And that was also advertised as the news they came out. So that was a really good day for us. Our Bridgeview Back to School event, and we also distribute additional resources. In Bridgeview, we were able to give out food, and then we partnered with the management team and the owners there to bring some additional resources to the families that reside in that neighborhood. We have an ongoing partnership with Greg's Groceries for packing and distribution. And then we also did National Night Out, which was a huge hit for us and within our community. So we did our National Hispanic Heritage event on Johns Island. We're trying to bridge the gap, obviously, between us and the Hispanic community. And we've also done some active shooter training. We did that at Costco, and we also do business risk assessments. Moving on, I constantly go over a reoccurring outreach, but I just want to reiterate what we're doing with some of these outreach programs with the youth, and mentorship is showing to be successful as the youth are they're coming back to these events, and they're able to speak with officers and then hear our guest speakers talk and have that engagement. We also have our quick response team, which is our post-overdose outreach program with our police assisted addiction and recovery initiative, which is PARI for short, PAARI. Where we partner with Charleston Center for resources and outreach to our overdose victims to assist them with treatment, not only them, but also their families, maybe the person who called us for help. Provide training and Narcan to victims' families, businesses. We work with 180 Place to get those who need resources, those in need, get them the resources they need. We have had a number of success stories with getting victims into treatment, and also we are documenting not only initial contact, but we are doing additional contact with these victims. And we've had some victims who wouldn't speak to us on our first contact. They've actually reached back out to us, or on our second or third contact have agreed to go into treatment. So that's been very successful for us. We have a huge project that we've been working on that I constantly talk about, is our youth mentorship year-long program, Low Country Youth Services. So we're planning to engage with 30 youth, high-risk youth for a year-long program, and have some of those tough conversations that we all discuss on here a lot with law enforcement, so we can kind of bridge that gap, and then, obviously work with them to develop skills that they'll need for the future as they grow older. So we're starting to, our recruiting for that program is to begin the end of October. And then we're looking to ramp it up in November, and that'll be a year-long program we're really looking forward to. So upcoming, obviously our Police Citizens Academy started last night. A number of you were there. I appreciate your attendance. We had some really good presentations, some good discussion, and I'm really looking forward to the next 7 or 8 weeks and to integrate you guys into what we do and get you guys through some of that training. We are going to be escorting a youth football team weekly, and that was actually the mayor asked us to do that. So we're looking forward to doing that, and we'll be able to have good conversations with those youth as well. I did, all of our special events are all advertised on our social media, and we try to get it out via our PIOs to the media. But we do have upcoming, so we have our fundraiser tomorrow, Cops on the Coop, and then our Faith and Blue weekend, partnering with St. John's Chapel, some churches on the Greenway. We have a lot of good things happening this weekend. So if you're able to come out, just come on out. That's always a successful weekend. We also partner with Coastal Crisis Chaplaincy for Faith and Blue every year. We have a lot of business donations and partnerships: Harris Teeter, Whole Foods, Krispy Kreme, of course, Costco, Charleston Bicycle for our Bike the Greenway. We're planning our big Halloween Howl event, big turnout last year. And then we have some more upcoming events in November and December. I think that's kind of the gist of my update for some of our outreach programs and what we're working on.
And Captain McFadden, thank you for sending that email today with the flyers for the various community outreach activities that are going on. Members, please take a look at those. There's the Faith and Blue weekend. That is this coming weekend with events. And then there's also the Halloween Howl, right? October 21st. And I was trying to, and on October 21st, there will be the Morning of Unity, Chief Reynolds and Miles McPherson at 9:15 in the morning. And it will occur at the training office there, the training room there at the City Police Department on Lockwood. If you are interested in attending, please, council members, please use the RSVP link that is in the email that Captain McFadden sent us. Thank you, Captain McFadden. Any other questions or comments for Captain McFadden?
Hey, Ms. Torn, I would
Yes,
just add, yeah, just really to encourage engagement and participation, especially from this body. Don't take it for granted that those things have been sent to you. We really need, full engagement as much as possible from this group, especially with a lot of those initiatives. So we want to start seeing not only you guys, but, same speak, I give our council people, especially when we're talking about community. A lot of these initiatives, it helps out, you representing certain areas of our community. So getting the word out is paramount for that end. So I just want to, kind of highlight that. The same thing as far as the Citizens Academy. I'm so appreciative for those that could make it, and for those that couldn't, don't worry, we have another one here shortly. So you will be getting the invitation as well with other council members that couldn't make it. But we want to make that our platform moving forward. And I'm soliciting your engagement and participation, especially from this body. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. And just for the record, I did neglect to say that. So thank you, Deputy Chief Walker. Many thanks to Councilmember Tamburino, Council members Tamburino, Palmer, Ryan Davis, Cam Shields, Jerry Harris, and also Moyu visited with us, attended in preparation, I hope, for her appointment to this council. And it really was a great session. So if you are able to enroll for the next class, next session of 8 sessions after this class graduates in December, please make certain to do that. It's really a good experience. And Captain McFadden, Emily, Councilwoman Broom, regretted that she wasn't able to start in this class, but she does want to be included in the next group of classes when we have them.
Definitely, thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you.
And Deputy Chief Walker, if you've got any additional updates for us. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Harris, you have your hand up? Or is that...
Yeah. Last night, just to comment on the Academy, it was a great kickoff. I apologize for being late. During the discussion, there was a question of how the partnerships, programs, and problem-solving initiatives that the department is undertaking and being measured. It sounded like Captain McFadden that the new module where you have the officers literally logging the activities in those 3 categories is relatively new. At what point are you thinking about taking a snapshot and perhaps presenting? I don't know if it belongs in Paul's committee or to CPAC generally. What patterns you're seeing. I think that would be very instructive to give us a sense of, you know, how successful we're being, and where there may be issues and where it may be problems. For example, last night when I asked a question about where could the I think it was Sergeant Engels, whether he could give an example of an application of the problem-solving approach. Most of what he presented was about partnerships and programs, and not a lot about problem solving. So in a sense, that's where you're going. I'm encouraged by that and hope that we can have some more conversation about that and get some more information at a future meeting when you've got enough data to make some sense of it.
Yeah, we can definitely get that together. Like I said, it is kind of new, so we are kind of still looking through it, but I mean, it looks like something good that we'll be able to present to you. Sergeant Ingalls actually did lead the training for the POP module. So I don't know that it was, maybe he was just caught off guard by the questions. I don't know that it was that he couldn't provide an example at that time, but we'll certainly work to get that data together for you to present something.
Thank you, Captain McFadden. We'll proceed with we have about 7 minutes left in our meeting tonight. With that, Deputy Chief Walker, are there any additional things you would like to add on behalf of Chief? I think we covered all of the.
Yes, ma'am. I think,
requirements.
yeah, you covered everything. The Chief's biggest thing was the upcoming event on the 21st with Miles McPherson. He really want to push that out, extend the invitation, especially to this body. It will have a wide variety of representation of community stakeholders who we're targeting. The clergy, faith-based community. He's already reached out to several people. So this is part of the overall initiatives to bring the community and kind of to Jerry's point with problem solving. This is one step towards that. So Mr. McPherson is world renowned, his goal simply is to teach people how we are more similar than different and show how to honor and celebrate our individual uniqueness. So Chief is really pushing this platform. So I told him I will reiterate it and pretty much bring it up on the call. And I think you covered it during your session. But like I say, I'm just appreciative. Like I say, reiterate from last night. It's very encouraging. Like I say, we want to get more participation. We don't want everyone that support us as far as police. We need more jaded people. It's all about insight. It's not to sway opinions. So I really want to use this opportunity to push our platform with more participation in the Citizens Academy and these upcoming events. So I thank you so much for your leadership, you and Paul, with this body. You've been very, very helpful for us, and it don't go unnoticed, and we don't take it for granted. So
thank you, sir. We appreciate you for your comments and your participation, and all of the officers that are on the call tonight, hanging in there with us and ensuring that we work harmoniously towards achieving the goals of improved communication between and relationships between the community and the police department. With that said, looking at the topics for our next meeting, I just put some reminders there. We will do the election of the chairman and vice chairman at the December 2nd meeting in keeping with our guidelines. Also, during that meeting, we need to select our meeting dates for February and April 2022. Can you believe it? We'll be getting into 2022. Wow. So I do have that. The remaining virtual Citizens Academy dates, if you didn't see them in your minutes from previous, we have a session next week, October 13th, for those, of course, who are members that started on last night, and the 20th and the 27th, and that will complete the month of October. I also made note of the fact that from our meeting tonight, we'll need to discuss the incident response from May 30th, May 31st, the 2020 Officer Internal Affairs Report, and CPD's response to the policy recommendation, giving us an update on that. as well as results on the participation from the community engagement. We will, of course, have our subcommittee reports as well. Have I left out anything for the next meeting's agenda? Any other reminders?
I just had one quick question. Did you want to go through the approval of minutes from the August meeting?
Yes, because we did not have a quorum present at the time of that meeting.
Okay.
So yes, please let us do that. We met on August the 5th. I hope everyone got a chance to read those minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, the minutes from the June meeting. And the
Madam Chair, I
actual,
make a motion to approve as published, please.
you do. Thank you, Vice Chairman Tamburino. Is there a second?
Second, Jerry Harris.
Thank you, Councilman Harris. It's been properly moved and seconded that we will approve of the minutes from the June meeting. All those in, any question? Looks like none. Okay, all those in favor, please give me a hand raise or a thumbs up. Okay. Thank you. Any opposition? Please raise your hand. Okay, perfect. Thank you. It's been, the motion passes. So the minutes from the June meeting are now approved and can be posted. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
And thank you, Andrea, for joining us tonight. We appreciate you stepping in. Bethany, everyone, is doing quite well. She and little baby are doing great, beautiful. So if you want to reach out to her, send her a text or something, please feel free to do so. With that said, it is 7:28. Thank you so much for your time this evening. And again, if anyone has any questions or comments they would like to send to CPAC for addressing, the address is chspoliceadvisory@gmail.com. Everyone, please have a good night. Hope to see you at some of the upcoming events. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night. Thank you, guys.